We'll be starting today's work session, September sixth, 2018, if we can rise for the pledge. Vic, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Victor.
I don't know if we were in sync on that one.
I don't like that pause, but that's okay. I'll get over it.
All right, we're gonna start today with, United Riverhead Terminals, special permit, so all those involved, if you'd like to come up and join us at the table. Once you're seated, we're just gonna have you introduce yourselves because we are on camera. Jeff and Greg, are you gonna join us?
Hi, Greg.
Hello.
Hi, Jeffrey.
All right, if we could start here, if we could introduce ourselves around.
Sure. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John McConville. I'm the president of United Riverhead Terminal.
Good morning, my name's Nelson Happy, and I'm the vice chairman of United Riverhead Terminal.
Ed Miller, Director of Operations, yours it?
Okay, very good.
Vic Pershnowski, 533 Elton Street, consultant for United Riverhead Terminals.
All righty. Who would like to start off? Greg?
Nope.
Nope?
Balls in their court.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you gonna give a report to the
No,
board?
it's,
No?
this is, you
Oh.
got it.
Oh, okay, so we're here today to go over the application, the special permit application. We received communication from Greg and Jeff from the planning department, some further questions. We responded into writing, I filed them with the town clerk, so they're available with the public, and we're here to go over where we are with the special permit, and we're actually anxious to get a resolution written by the staff, and so that we could proceed to a vote on the special permit application. I will take note that in our responses, we had forwarded both to the town attorney and to the staff, hopefully one to the town board, the covenants that we are in favor of, with your request, that we have no problem with the covenants. Greg asked us to add an additional covenant under no circumstances could ethanol be used in the tanks, and we've agreed to that too. So the community asked for some covenants, which was to tear down the tanks if the law changes, we've agreed to that. Inspections, we've agreed to that. No motor fuel of any kind to be, mixed, we've agreed to that. Only heating oil to comply with the state law, we've agreed to that, and no ethanol. So we're here to answer any questions.
And you also amended your application.
And we amended the application, took care of all the anomalies and corrections, which I think Greg has reviewed already. So we amended the application and corrected any of the anomalies that we had previously. So that's on file and submitted and stamped in at the town clerk, per the code.
So there's an addendum to the May 11th application, is that correct, or is that?
Yeah, there is an addendum. It was not stamped in by the town clerk's office, but it did come in and it was a revised copy.
Okay.
Oh, no, I did stamp it in, I have a stamped copy, yeah, I have a stamped copy. And we also changed the part that you wanted in the application, which was just, heating oil only, on the special permit.
And so it's heating oil only to comply with the state legislation
Exactly
and
right.
with the state
And both
legislation
parts,
number?
the two parts of the application that reference that, we changed that,
Okay.
yes, per your request, Supervisor.
And then one of the other questions that we had, and I know you sent us some information, but if you could address that, which is the truck traffic.
Right.
You know, because you've been mixing since July 1st, have you? How has that been taking place? Where is that taking place? How's that?
So it's taken place at the loading rack. We are, buying pre-blended product, coming in by vessel. We're at a fairly, economic disadvantage, by doing that. Most loading racks in New York State have injection capabilities for biofuel, and it's more economical for us. And then as it relates to truck traffic, The trucks that are coming to Riverhead to fuel product for destinations like Calverton would be coming with biofuel on them, so there wouldn't be any incremental truck traffic. And then the concept of the B5, it's really, the biodiesel is displacing the hydrocarbon by 5%, so there's 95% of the heating oil product instead of 100%, so there's no incremental volume, on top of that would, you know,
And to follow up what John is saying, in the New York State law, there is tax credit, New York State tax credit incentives to go beyond the 5% up to 20% of mixture. And, that can only be done at the rack, because we can't store 15 different, bulk, mixtures, because it's economically unfeasible and puts us to a competitive disadvantage where Holtzville can mix, you know, if a customer comes up and says, I'll take 11%, and they get the paperwork for their tax credit for New York State, they can do that. So right now, we're just doing a 5% pre-mix blend to comply with the state law. So once the 6 tanks are constructed, then we'll go to injecting at the rack, so we can, from customers, can order from 5 to 20%, depending on their needs and their wants, so that they would qualify for the New York State tax credit, which is in the law, which you have a copy of.
How often do people do that, get varying levels of the,
it's quite often, right? So.
Especially with the tax credit.
In Brooklyn, for example, customers range from B5 to 6, some get 8, 10, 15, 20, so it's,
just varies on what the building's heating with
Right.
for their tax credit?
and it's really, you know, it kind of relates back to the CFO of the buildings.
Yeah.
To discover whether or not they wanna take advantage of the tax credit, and or do they wanna embed the use of biofuel into their sustainability report, because it is very environmentally friendly. It reduces carbon emissions significantly, right? When you're at the B20 level, it exceeds the carbon emissions of natural gas, so it's much, much better for the environment.
Agreed.
Just out of curiosity, for like
You
LEED
can't
certified, you need to, what is, some of the buildings that are LEED certified, they have to comply with
Right,
LEED?
so in our operations supervisor, we are a BQ 9000 certified supplier. So what that means is there's significant protocols that we need to adhere to in order to be in compliance with those, you know, protocols. So and we get audited every year to make sure we're in compliance with the standard, and we intend to have that same standard in Riverhead as well.
And, I don't know, do you wanna just address some of these questions here?
It's up to you.
That were, I think that might be, because we do have some people from Northville Civic, I know that traffic is a concern to them. Any expansion on the property is of grave concern to them, and one of the questions was the traffic, and you did respond with some information, so do you wanna go through these?
That's up to you, Super, we're here to answer your
I
questions.
would go through these.
You wanna start at the top, we have
Yes.
everybody here, Mr. Happy's here, everybody's here who,
So, yep.
we're happy to expand upon it, and whatever you wanna do, we're here.
I think that would be good, because we
As long
had,
as I catch my 1 o'clock flight to Florida,
Mike?
I'm here right up to the last possible moment I get to the airport.
alrighty.
Thank you
Where are you
for
leaving from, McGaw?
No, I'd rather drive to Florida than that, no, it's, you know, Islip.
Okay. One of the questions is, please detail how the biofuel will be getting to the URT terminal. Will it be coming by land or by sea, and will this result in an increased number of trips at the URT site? So you had responded, it will be probably by trucks owned by you. Do you wanna just answer this directly? So I think it's just also so that
Go ahead,
people in the
John.
community can hear the answers.
Yeah, so, it's only gonna be trucks, either supplied by our own fleet or under contract to us, that is going to bring the biodiesel into Riverhead. It will be discharged into the 6 tanks, and then it'll be distributed to the rack at the varying percentages that the customers require. And that process, that supply reliability that our customers, you know, kinda tend to lean on us for, is a continuing process. So that's how we're going to bring it in.
So will trucks be coming full and leaving empty, or will they be coming full and leaving full?
Both. Yeah, they would never come and leave empty, right?
Right,
Because there's a
yeah,
charge
yeah,
for
yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
So It's always coming in full with biodiesel and leaving full with a blended product, going back out the rack.
I think you said that at the public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Please provide information on the
Oh, by the
exist-
way, I love the question, cause one of my landed people, I see, I thought it was Midnight Ride at Fall Revere. It was kind of elegant.
Please provide information on the existing truck traffic, understanding that the truck traffic varies by season. Please provide truck traffic information from a peak operating period. So this was one of the questions that was raised about how many trucks are going in and out, will there be an increase of trucks going in and out? I know that you have a peak, I guess, a one-day peak of 144
Yes.
trucks?
Yes.
And how do you see that varying as this process goes forward if you were approved?
It shouldn't change. What really determines the number of trucks is the number of sales we make. So if more customers order more oil, then there'll be more trucks, but it's not affected by the biodiesel.
And this was the peak this was the tippy top peak that we found in a 2-year period. That's why we put that in there, so that's the peak, it's,
that was
the
the
average
busiest
is
day.
less.
And that's 144 two-way, in and out.
Okay. And what is the path that the trucks tend to take? Do they go over to Northfield Turnpike?
Right now, we're prior to a prior town board, mainly from Jody Giglio, the trucks come in from Northfield Turnpike, they only transport from Northfield Turnpike to Penny's Road on Sound Avenue. They're forbidden to go on Sound Avenue. So they have to, when they leave the terminal, they come up Penny's Lane and go to the rack. When they leave the rack, they must go down, and they go on Northfield Turnpike, and then are dispersed on Route 58 or Route 25. That's the only way they can go now. The trucks that are under our control.
Cause I was concerned about the
Right, cause of.
road base
Right,
for the
at
town of
one
Riverhead
point, they
roads
were
and
coming up Edwards Avenue, up by the Cooperage and stuff like that, and that's been stopped.
so we encourage them to take the county.
the trucks that are under our control?
Well, the trucks are under our control, which is mainly the tanker trucks that bring in the big product, and we take the product back to, the smaller fuel oil trucks, like your homeowner fuel oil trucks, he has to do deliveries on Sound Avenue, they're not under our control.
But those are not dual axle.
They're not dual axle, no, it's only the dual axles, the big metro trucks, or contract metro trucks that are under our control are forbidden, and of course, they're never allowed to make a left turn on Sound Shore Road once they leave the rack, they're forbidden.
Unless they're making a delivery down at the.
Okay, and then the other one was to please detail, aside from the capacity issue, why the mixing cannot take place at the Calverton site. Would mixing at the Calverton site result in increased truck traffic? So this was a couple of the questions, if you could, I think this is a one of concern of not really understanding why you can't do it there.
So, Nelson has a better example of the size constraints, but I'll weigh in that supply reliability to our customer base is significant to us, right? We don't take that lightly. We would not be able to support our customer base out of Calverton only.
You were, tied in Suffolk County Department of Health Services, Article 12, you were tied to the gallonage that Grumman was using when they were there. So you couldn't expand the capacity of the tanks, as I understood it.
Correct.
Right, we have two 500,000 gallon tanks there right now, and we have one small bio tank, about 100,000 gallons. So that's it for now. We, originally, when we were gonna bring the biofuel in by rail, which could still happen in the future if management wants to, we had a phase 2 site plan, Jody, as you're familiar with, to fix we have an abandoned tank there, would have to be reviewed, renovated, fixed, and we'd have to get all the approvals and that would be used for, if we were going to distribute biofuel directly from that spot, but right now, there's no plans on doing that.
And if you did do that, would that meet the capacity that you're trying to accomplish
That's for
here?
a separate product that's available in market, like biodiesel fuel and stuff like that, has nothing to do with this operation.
home heating.
Right.
Okay, so it's not your intention in the other plan to mix the home heating oil over there, it would be for,
In theory, if you wanted us to do that, you would have 4 times the truck, because remember, everything that is at Calverton, the heating oil fuel, comes from the tank farm. So that's why those trucks come up there empty, now they'll come up with a biofuel, we fill up the two 500,000 gallon tanks for distribution. If we had to mix the 40 million gallons at Calverton, we'd have a caravan of trucks all day long. It would be operational and financially impractical, and I think it would be a horrendous hardship on the road system, it's just not practical, unless somebody wants to authorize us to build a pipeline.
No.
Which
I
would
think
take
the
50
original-
years.
And I think the original intent for the Calverton site was just to bring the biodiesel
That's
there
correct.
and to
That's
have
a
the
distribution.
biodiesel go out and
Right,
inject
right.
into other blends.
Like the Orient Point Ferry, they use biofuel, they don't, sometimes they buy it from us, sometimes they get it from Connecticut, okay? I'm using that as an example of a customer, because it's more economical for them to buy the biofuel, for the ferry system. I know, Port Jeff Ferry too was, they use biofuel too. I'm just using that as one customer that, names you know that would be a customer base on that.
Well, I think just observations that, from what I've been reading, I understand that the state mandates or
Right.
that you have to do this, and I know that the biofuel is actually better for the environment. Adding 5% is that less carbon imprint. So I think it's important that it's done. I realize that URT up in Northville is the most practical to get that mandate done. So I think it lessens the carbon footprint that way. So I think it's better for the environment all the way around. Now I understand the concerns of Northville, believe me, I grew up in town, I know what they are, and those have been addressed as far as trucks, as far as the additional trucks, or whether this is an end run to put gas tanks in, or whatever the concerns are.
Well, we've addressed all that in the cover.
I realize, yeah, I read that, and I'm comfortable with that, so, I mean, I appreciate all that you have done, so I think it's I don't know, I don't really have any questions on what you've done. I think you went out of your way to address the issues, address the concerns, and that's just what I think.
And then just the other question that had been asked, which I believe you answered, was about the ethanol.
Yeah, we've agreed to that.
So, another thing that I had brought up at the public hearing was the, intersection of Penny's Lane and
Right,
Sound. What's
right.
being
So
proposed for that?
where we are on that, Jody, is that I've been working with the highway superintendent, and I finally got in touch with the vice president that I met when we ran the, gas to the terminal a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. So there is a gas meter that has to be moved in order for us to complete the improvement of the intersection. So when I get back from Florida, we're gonna meet not next week, but the following week, he's gonna come out and he's gonna, give us, an assessment of what it would cost to move the meter, and of course, we'll pay for it. And then Geo can finish up the improvement of the intersection.
I thought that there was, that you would have to acquire property from Garden View.
No, we
or
have enough,
something?
there's
Right
enough
of way?
right of way on, he already researched it, Geo, there's enough right of way on each side where we're gonna we're gonna do two things, we're gonna wobble the, intersection, and we're gonna cut the corner up to the town property line of the easement of the, not the easement,
The right of way.
Right. As you know, mostly in the town of Riverhead, we have 50-foot right-of-ways, but we have 35-foot pavement in most of the town roads, so we're gonna go to the extreme edge there. He's also checked on the rocks are not an historical landmark or anything, so we can reposition those rocks, and then we can widen. The goal is to make sure the tanker truck can make the turn without crossing the double line.
Right, so that was the big problem all
Right,
these years,
and
is that you're
would achieve-
facing
this-
oncoming
this would
traffic
be
with the trucks
achieved,
trying to
right,
get out.
and we'll pick up any unnecessary, any cost associated with that.
So, will you be, I guess, if you've ironed it out and you know where the right of way is, are you gonna be submitting a cut sheet for that?
Well,
Because
that's not us,
this is not-
we're gonna pay to move, the plan that we had is we would pay to move the meter,
Okay,
and then Geo would do the work.
okay, so that is in the conditional approval, gentlemen?
It will be in this one.
If it's the board's.
We'll make sure that.
Well, I don't know if you can, we don't own the property, so I don't know, I mean, we could work with the highway to achieve that. I don't know if you can mandate that to us, it involves the highway superintendent, it's up to you guys.
But you do own a significant amount of property that can come off your property right out to Sound Avenue. And I hope that you guys would take a look at that and consider exiting from your property out onto Sound Avenue.
Yes,
Because I think that is a large concern of the community there. I think
Really?
But I think
Another road
that,
through farmland.
that is,
Yeah, okay, that
is,
makes a lot of sense.
well, it is their that is
I
their
realize
property
that, but
there.
it's still farmland, and good lord, another access point on the Sound Avenue.
Well,
That's-
I think it would be something that you
short-sighted.
might wanna just take a look at and consider, especially if you're starting to have to move gas meters and to widen the road at the, you know, out from Penny's out onto, to Sound Avenue. And I think that, you know, as the fall traffic, I'm sure that slows you up coming in and out all as the traffic increases, and the traffic isn't gonna get less here. So, and it's a direct route straight out instead of going over Penny's. I would hope that that would be something you take a very close look at.
I think they were looking at that when they were looking at putting the fuel cell there. That was one of the conditions of putting the fuel cell there, was to go
Well, that
right in
was-
the middle of the farm fields, but you would have to build a pretty substantial road
I don't know
in
whether
order
it was a
to carry the
condition,
weight
it
of the
was
trucks.
It was
I was talking, Jim, but,
Yeah, it's
Go ahead.
not as easy as it sounds, you
Right.
gotta consider the overall traffic impact of it, but we are studying that and certainly looking into it.
But
I
I think
hate to see
too,
it.
this
I
is,
am so
you
against
know,
that.
you're in an area
I'd
that I
rather buy a
understand
house
what
up
you're
there,
doing
that's it.
here. I think but you are operating under non-conforming. You are really, in all rights, expanding that non-conforming use in an area. So I think it's something that you should, you know, take a look at and consider. You know, I think you're a valuable part of the community. I think having the fuel there, you know, not just for our local area, but for, you know, the eastern seaboard, really.
Well, I agree, I mean, it is an expansion, but it's an expansion to the good.
I agree with that, and
There's some expansions that are to the bad,
I agree with that, and I agree
so
that
we
it.
encourage good stuff.
We do encourage good stuff, but we also encourage good neighbors, and we encourage
I think cutting through that
good
farmland is
community
very
relations.
short-sighted, very short-sighted.
Actually, I think
I had an
it's-
interesting call from a member of the community, about the volume relatively, and so I had one of our engineers do a study, and it was very interesting. If you consider the 120,000 gallons versus our 5 million barrels of storage, it's the equivalent of the thickness of 1 penny compared to 9 feet of pennies. That's how small it is in the context of our overall business. It's very, very small change.
Right, but it is a change.
It is.
And it is an expansion.
Sure.
So, you know, big or small, it is what it is.
so you're
It is what it
asking,
is. It's
so you're asking
that
them
was
to
an
consider
interesting-
the roadway through the farm field. Are you asking for that to be a condition of approval?
I would like them to go back and give it a little bit of thought. I don't think they, would you like to answer that now?
It takes more thought, because we have to look at the overall traffic
No, I don't.
flow.
I'm not
But
favoring that.
it's a complicated issue. We looked at it once before,
not
and it
favoring
turned out that it requires a major road.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is impact in terms of the traffic flow. So we never really fully finished working on it, and then it had to do with issues too of getting permits and changes.
I
As I
think
say,
the
it's not as
sooner-
simple as it seems.
Well,
but-
and this issue is not as simple as it seems either,
Right.
you know, I mean, it's not as simple as it is adding the biofuel in something that's non-conforming. The whole part of the comprehensive plan was to eliminate non-conforming uses, not expand them going forward. So, you know, like I said, I see the need for this, and I'm just, you know, putting it out there as good neighbors and as doing business here, to consider looking at the road going forward.
Well, you can look at the road, I certainly would not make it a condition of this mandate from the state, which is better for our environment. Since I have a young daughter that's being raised in this world, I'm more worried about getting that 5% carbon footprint the hell out of here, and I'd like to do it tomorrow. I don't want a condition whether you tear a farm lot to put in a road so that you don't have to widen Penny Road. I mean, all that's all conditional, but that's something we can look at down the road. For me personally, that's just me speaking.
I'm not saying that it's a condition, I'm asking them to go back, do a little work, and come back to us with some
Yes,
information
and
on that.
actually, there is another option that we're looking at too on purchasing property, we're just exploring it, which would be associated with Penny Lane, and we're just in the preliminary stages of looking at that right now, so.
And I'd like to chime in and respectfully disagree with Councilman Wooten.
Of course.
I don't think it's a short-term thing. I actually think we're looking long-term. I mean, we all know that traffic is a real concern out here. Just last weekend, it was difficult for me, I live off of Sound, to even turn out on Sound Avenue. So I would be all on board with you looking and considering having, a road on your property out onto Sound. I think it's a good solution.
And with all due respect, having sat with the planning board and hearing applications on state roads and on county roads, they discourage additional curb cuts because it creates more traffic. So I think that improving that intersection of Pennies and making it so that it's safe, so that the trucks are not pulling out into oncoming traffic. And I don't know what your lease is with the farmer either, that's farming that property, whether or not you could even build a road right through the middle of the farm fields. But if they've asked you to go back and look at that, I would also recommend that you get a letter from the highway superintendent saying what he thinks is the best thing, because I'm sure that the road in the middle of the farm field is not going to be something that he would recommend.
That's
Well,
what
we
we
have-
found out before, that it is, again, it's not as easy, it's.
Nothing's as
Yeah.
easy as you.
And
We
do-
get that.
And we do have representatives here from planning. Is that true, that you guys, what Jody was saying?
Making new roads with new curb cuts generates more traffic
Or
and
in this
backups.
situation, what are you thinking in this
Well,
situation?
it's not a new road, it'd be a new, access point, and if there was a subdivision application in, they could put it in as a right, as part of that subdivision application. There's pluses and minuses to this proposal, and we haven't analyzed it on our side. The applicant has analyzed it way more than we have as staff or as the town, but it's certainly not tied to this project, to this application, so we did not analyze that at all anyway.
The one thing that's significant relative to this topic is drainage, right? And so there's an outfall that needs to be addressed, which is significant in its own right? So drainage is a very significant issue as it relates to building this, potential road.
And I think there's a problem already over there by Pennies with some flooding issue that's over there, that's coming around. So I don't know, has that been studied, whether that, if to do this with moving things around, is that gonna exacerbate what's going on over there already? Because that's, so that may not be the,
Spoke to Dan McCormick about that, he said he
Yeah,
already
this-
sent it.
I mean, there was a
right, that's
bubble.
what I'm saying, I don't know that what you're proposing to widen the road there will be either a fix or to exacerbate an ongoing situation already.
I think that Geo, even before this application had come in, and Dan McCormick said that there was the bubble that was at the corner of Northville Turnpike and Sound Avenue, that it was the county water coming off of, Jim, you wanna talk about it, or? So there was the runoff from Northville Turnpike was coming into Sound Avenue and then finding its way down to Pennies. So I know that Geo had been working on a fix for that intersection prior to this application coming in and requiring drainage. So if you're gonna be paying for it, then Geo is probably in full support of it, so.
I believe it's
That's
a
how-
ongoing issue with the county.
Right, that's
It's-
one
it's-
part of it,
it's
and just so everybody
county
knows,
water.
I've been working with Geo on this for about a year, we already have pushed back part of the corner, okay? And so half of the improvement on the corner there has been accomplished, it has not been paid properly or moved back of this gas meter. So Jody's correct, the Northville Turnpike water coming on, because, we have a sump down the road on Pennies there, it's about 900 feet back or 800 feet back, as you know.
On private property.
Right. No, but it's there and we have access to it, and the drains do go in there, so he's working with that with the county. And I don't think what we're trying to do here has an impact on that drainage, there's a larger question, but we would absolutely participate in a solution. So, I mean, it's our responsibility and we wanna do that, and we have been working with Geo on this now, so.
I think that's part of, that's kind of what I'm saying here.
Right.
I understand the need for this, I understand the significance of this, not just locally, but as I said, in the Eastern Seaboard. And as Vic is saying, and you're saying with the widening of Penny Roads, you do realize that it is an issue, there is a problem, as it exists going on that road now, so I would really like for you to consider some alternatives. I'm sure that you're not looking to stagnate your business here with the number of trucks coming in and out, that you're always looking to expand and to increase your revenue at the business. And in doing so, I think that the considerations of the community should be taken into account.
No, we'll definitely undertake that, we are doing it.
Right, you're doing it.
It's more than just only the community issues, also the trucking itself to make it more efficient.
Right,
So it
turning
is
in and
something-
turning out, it's a
Yeah,
challenge for the trucks coming in and coming out.
Makes no sense to have
The
it hard to turn
big
out.
tanker trucks, not
Yes,
the small
yes,
trucks.
yes,
Right, the
yes.
big
Not
tanker
the
trucks.
mom and
Not the
pop.
home.
Right, right.
Not the mom and pop's
Right.
fuel oil businesses, right? I'm still, I'm not gonna expound upon it, I just don't know how putting your own road in is gonna lessen the trucks on South Avenue, I don't get it, but that, and they don't ride South Avenue, I realize, I get it.
All I'll say is this, is that
We created an East
it
End that we
has-
want tourism,
it
we
has
want
been
people here, so
explored
now we're,
before, and the company will investigate it and have a determination if it's in the best interest of our business and of the community. So, I know exactly what the supervisor's, alluding to, and
So-
we're on it.
Okay. Very good, so is
Good
there
job.
any other questions from the board, or
Nelson, do
anything
you
else
wanna-
you'd like to say?
Can I just ask, do you wanna bring up that situation that Councilwoman, forget it, we'll do it another time, okay? Has nothing to do with this.
Okay,
Alright, so just to clarify, so I'm
Okay.
clear, is the board,
Muddy the water.
the road through the farmland, but
That's
we
a
wanna,
separate
yeah,
issue.
that's a separate issue. The widening of Penny's and Sound Shore Road, is that something that the board wants to be a conditional approval, is that cause they do need to go through the site plan as well after they get the special permit. So
Work with
the
Bob on
board would like to see
drafting
language about the widening being done prior to,
I would like to do that, I
CMO.
think it's a real safety concern with the trucks coming out and going into oncoming traffic, it's always been a bone of contention for me.
Yeah, we'll work with Bob on the language for that. So what we're hearing from the board is the staff to go ahead and prepare a draft resolution for approval
With those conditions there.
with those conditions.
with the conditions, the covenants that they had mentioned,
Yes.
the widening of Penny's and Sound Shore
Yes.
prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Cause they will need to go through
Yes.
planning, there will be some review for that. so-
unless you choose to go to an alternative and put another road in.
Which would be our
That
preference.
would
Which
require
would
a
be
whole
our
other
preference,
permit
which would be,
process.
but we
Obviously,
could,
that would be our
okay,
preference.
so,
Okay,
we
so
could
on the
see
winding- On the widening of Penny's
a
Lane,
timeframe in between there.
this is
Well,
to the
just one
town,
question
this
on
to
the
the town
widening.
attorney.
We have no
You're not looking to
control
make the
at
improvements,
all,
you're looking
it's
to
totally
pay the town,
town.
reimburse
Okay,
the town.
understood.
Well,
How do
no,
we-
that's
But-
not it.
Cause we have a real urgent timing problem, cause
Yeah, well, we're gonna,
we have this coming up, so with something we can't control.
we're going to give you a conditional approval, and then that would have to be done prior to the certificate of occupancy. So, you can put the tank in, you can do what you need to do, and work towards getting that widening
And
done.
the only parameter on the widening, we're widening to the edge of the town property,
Yeah, so,
per
well,
the
you gotta
highway
be able to make that
superintendent's
turn.
approval.
I would like for
Again,
our
I was-
building and plan to go out there first before we say exactly what's being done, because I would like to have somebody from the town.
Well, it would be the
assess it.
highway superintendent,
Yes.
he's the one I've been working with on it,
Just
and
stand it there.
But
and
it's
by the
not-
way,
it's-
he sent his engineer out there.
But it is not, it's not something, as Bob will tell you, it's not something that just sits with the highway superintendent. It is also something that sits within the town attorney's office.
Well, what I was gonna say is that obviously we're gonna limit the improvement to the area that's under town control, within the right of way. We're not looking to acquire or engage in any eminent domain or purchase of lands. So, it'll be addressed or with those conditions that.
I mean, down the line, if somebody says but that really is unfair to hold us up from getting a CO to operate if we had to buy property to do a phase 2 of this intersection,
Right.
because that, it might be a friendly condemnation, it might be an unfriendly condemnation, you know, that's a whole different process
Can
of
we
acquiring
do
property.
it with the commitment of the improvement of traffic flow,
Sure.
I mean, Geo will,
and whatever that may turn out to be?
Yeah, that's fine, actually, I like that, and believe me,
That's so easy.
Supervisor, we've been working on this for over a year, so that just didn't start with, long before the ethanol tanks came up, so.
Well,
and
that's,
probably it
that's
would have
a-
been
that's
done
a
by now. if we
concern,
didn't-
though,
Excuse me?
if you've been working on it for over a year,
Because we don't own the property, and it's the highway superintendent, he had to work it in his schedule, he got his engineer, he had to do the research, and now we just gotta move this gas meter.
right, he needed to know where the
Right.
right of way was, so that he
had
could
to
tell
check with
you whether or
historical-
not,
He had to check with historical, I guess it's our historical people, to make sure that some of those markers on Sound Avenue are not historical designations, and stuff like that he had to check out over time.
Just historical gas
But
station.
I think that just
No, not that,
getting,
that had nothing to do with
Horse pitches.
Yeah, go ahead.
getting a
Sorry,
scoping from Geo as to the work that would be required to be done there and to determine whether or not it will soften the curve to where the trucks will not be pulling out into oncoming traffic. And I think that once you do that also, it's also going to improve the traffic flow
Oh,
on
yeah,
Penny's Lane,
definitely.
because the trucks are not gonna be stuck at Sound Avenue waiting until there aren't any cars going eastbound to pull out. So they'll be able to pull out if there's no traffic coming westbound on Sound Avenue. And I think it'll improve the traffic flow on Penny's anyway.
So how do we do this, that any improvements that are made, we know, what our end goal is?
You're gonna see the resolution, we're gonna reach out to Geo to find out what exactly improvements that he is envisioning, and then we'll report back to you, and then we'll incorporate whatever the board and Geo decide together into a condition.
And the goal of the improvement is just to widen the roads for the turning of the trucks?
Right, so they
And
don't cross the
whatever
double
else is
lane.
involved with
Right,
CSEs.
for safe passage of these trucks.
So it's so that the trucks don't enter the other lane?
That's
Right.
correct.
And anything else besides that is the goal there?
Whatever we can fit on the town property that Geo deems that he can do, that doesn't violate the property owner or guy next door unless we have to purchase property. I mean, I don't know what else
You
to
got Henry
say.
Silverman on one side, and you got Eve Kaplan on the other.
Right,
And any issues
Oh,
that
Evo.
now
have been
Henry
put,
Silverman
Evo's
is for sale, but
So the improvement of the traffic flow is so that a truck exiting from
the tanker trucks,
URT
right,
will not
cross the
exit,
double line,
cross the double line when entering Sound Avenue.
Correct.
So whatever way that has to be done,
we have to
we need to
achieve
figure out what
goal.
that is.
Exactly,
and you're looking at any and all ways to improve
Right.
traffic control.
Right.
Since that's a big concern.
So if I might add, Supervisor, you know, I kind of view this in kind of two segments, right? One is a compliance issue, and one is a safety issue. Right? Compliance being what it is, right, we need to be in compliance with the law. However, the safety issue, I'm hopeful, right, that everybody at this table is sincere to address the safety issues in a timely manner and not hold up the compliance issue as it relates to, you know, our requirement to the law. So that's my only concern as it relates to the traffic. If we've been working on this for over a year,
Yeah,
I'm a little concerned about the timing.
I don't know that it was really being pushed the way it would have been pushed. I will personally make a call to the highway superintendent and ask him to, you know, and planning staff will also, and I'm sure the rest of the town board will, to make sure that he gets in writing what he thinks improvements need to happen to that intersection in order to make it so that you're not going out into oncoming traffic.
I think what we had said, the improvements of traffic flow, onto Sound Avenue will be the end goal.
Yep. And Gio's got a
And so
plan
that
for
it
that.
is-
Okay.
So,
yeah, and believe me, it wasn't his fault, where we just got hung up on the meter. And the gas company is huge, and I do have a guy, and the only reason I have the guy's name is because I had to go to a meeting, cause the county wouldn't give them cuts, and Geo had a problem with National Grid of repairing installations in the town of Riverhead, so he held up all the road opening permits that the gas company needed to run this pipe. So I was asked to go to the meeting on behalf of the company, and that's why I met this guy, okay? And he's the guy that, and it was all worked out. Geo got a better satisfactory, so that when people come, when National Grid does installations on like Elton Street where I live, they have to repair the road to the standards of the highway superintendent, which they weren't doing before, Jody. So now they have a whole new protocol, and you gotta put up
yeah,
ponds and all
well,
this other
Gio
stuff.
and I met with National Grid
Right.
a couple of years ago,
Yes,
and
right.
actually revised the
Probably it was at the-
applications
it was
and
pro-
required
right, it was
bonds and
probably
everything else, so.
At the same time I went to that meeting, you were involved in it,
Well, we
so-
started withholding bonds too, they weren't getting their money back.
No, that's correct, it was a real issue, which has
Gio
been,
stopped
which has
issuing
been
road opening
resolved,
permits
so.
for them.
But I
They
understand
had
the
like
compliance
30
and the safety
applications,
issue,
and
I
it's like,
certainly
no.
don't wanna
Considering it.
hold
It's
up the
like, you can't do
compliance
that.
issue
Gio, a meeting.
for the road. There must be some conditions we could put in this resolution,
Well, if we get,
without
I'll say this,
sacrificing
we
the
don't,
compliance.
the highway superintendent doesn't need much to do this, we just have to move the thing, he can do it on his own
Well,
motion, he doesn't have to submit to any other,
Respectfully,
Oh, okay.
he's not here right now,
No,
so
I
we
understand
can't
that.
speak for him.
no.
And I will say, knowing the issues on that road right there, it is not just a highway issue.
Okay,
There are also other issues that the town has been dealing with on that corner
Okay,
there, that
okay.
is just not a highway issue. So
Okay.
those need to be addressed simultaneously, to address us, one without the other does not help
Okay.
the town.
Okay.
So, and I do understand your concern to be able to move this forward, so we've, you know,
Right,
we've had this
right.
discussion, I think we're taking this all into consideration, we'll all have takeaways
Yep.
here. We understand that you've complied with a lot, what we've asked for, and we appreciate that. And in return, we know that traffic is an issue and turning out from that area is an issue. So we're asking you to take a look at that also, so that we can all move forward together.
Yes.
Would it be
I'm
possible
glad I brought it up.
for us to go ahead and order materials for the not installing anything until the final approval, but it would help us if we're gonna have to wait for this turning?
I don't think you're gonna be waiting for anything. I think the highway superintendent knows what needs to be done and just needs to put it down in writing so that it can be a part of the resolution.
I do think that is something that I would not comment on. I think that is a business decision on your choice. You do not have approval at this time. You know, it's kinda like ordering the wedding dress before the engagement happens. So it is up to you to make your own business decisions,
Right, well, we knew that, but.
so.
Well, you thought you'd throw it out
We're
there.
under a lot of pressure to get this.
Let's get some.
done.
Never heard,
Satisfied.
Joey, understand that.
It's all for Geo, we'll have it on for the next meeting.
You are.
Rather work in the summer than the winter.
Why? We just have one conversation going on here, please, so go ahead if you wanna.
No, just,
There'll be
I was
something
just
in
gonna
there that
mention,
they've
you
agreed to
know,
pay for.
as an energy
Like a
guy, right,
promissory.
so any movement of
Something
this
else.
natural
Well,
gas
it's not
line
conditional.
obviously is an interruption.
Mhm.
Right, so I would ask you, if you talk to
towards the
Geo,
company improvements.
I don't know the man personally.
I know the government representative from
also
PSE&G and
Right.
from,
Guys, just one
National Grid,
conversation.
so I will be more than happy to make those conversations to get that moved
Right.
sooner than later.
Right, but it's just the interruption, right, do we understand what that interruption entails?
That's why we wanna take a look at everything that's there, everything that needs to be moved, everything that needs to
Right,
be
it's,
interrupted,
what I'm
because
I'm
there's
just
more,
getting-
more
right.
things underground than,
Correct,
yeah, we understand that, yeah,
and what is going to be interrupted?
right,
We
and what,
need
and
to
our
know that,
timeline
right.
for everything of what it would take.
And the highway superintendent has all that information.
Alright, thank you very much.
Okay,
Bye.
Good to see you guys.
good resolution for the next meeting, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Supervisor, thank you.
I'll draft it if you need.
What?
I'll draft it if you need.
Okay.
Thanks for coming down. fella.
Thank you.
Right, get it done, make it so.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Okay.
All right. 84 lumber.
So the question for the board is, do we want to do this to move forward, if we were to move forward with the special permit, would there be an additional public hearing? Or would we just put it through with comments at the time of a hearing as we move forward?
What are you talking about?
Because they changed their application for the special permit after we had our last public hearing, do we want to leave the public hearing?
They changed their application to what?
Because they had additional fuel, Greg, if you wanna come sit down.
You're back.
They amended their
Oh, good God.
permit.
I think they amended the resolution just for clarity, I don't think the substance of the application really changed. They just cited the law, you know, they were a little more clear, they fixed up a couple of little clerical things, but the substance and the body of the application, I don't believe changed significantly to the point that would require a new public hearing.
I think we're good to go for the resolution.
Okay. Is everybody in agreement?
Yeah, I'll write the resolution, I'll distribute it, you can comment, you
Yeah,
know, I wanna make sure the
they
board.
might change, that's why I got.
Yeah, there was nothing significant, it's not like they didn't add 10 new tanks, so.
We'll reach out to
kept it
Geo
the same.
today, and depending on what he says, then we may come back to you at the work session next week, just to give you an update on the Penny's Road intersection.
Oh, that would be good, I would
And
appreciate
that way you'll have the resolution and Geo, and the plan.
But you also need to contact through Bob's office.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I'll be
it's,
in touch.
yeah,
I'll be-
All right,
okay,
excellent.
very
What
good, thank
engineer did Geo use, was it Joe?
I have not a clue. I'm gonna,
Okay.
we're gonna reach out to, as soon as I'm done with the
Okay, with Mr. 84 Lumber?
Mr. 84 lumber.
And can you also reach out to the applicant to ask if what path they would like to choose for the road?
Yep.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Mr. Cuddy.
This is 84 lumber for special permit?
And thank you very much for your thorough response to my question at the public hearing. Appreciate it.
Mr. Cuddy, I'm just gonna have you introduce yourself, just good on the.
Charles Cuddy, I'm the attorney for 84 Lumber, and pleased to be here, and I have nothing to talk about biofuel.
What about
You
Panini
need
Road?
to speak louder though.
Would you like some outside storage for
Voice
biofuel?
up? Okay, I will. No, as you know, what we did, and we've been doing this for more than a year, trying to get the outdoor storage of lumber 10% of the site. The site's 5.5 acres. We would have approximately half an acre or less, actually, of outdoor storage. We gave you, I think, you were concerned, the supervisor certainly was, about the DEC. We've given you letters from the DEC indicating that they don't have a problem with outside storage of lumber. At this point in time, we would like the resolution so that we could go ahead and at least begin the process of doing one other thing, which is to set aside the covenant that was put on many years ago. But first we did the special permit, and even though we had 10% or less, we still had a public hearing. There was no opposition at the public hearing. And I think it's an appropriate thing for lumberyards to do. As the DEC noted, it's pretty standard to have outdoor storage.
Now, are you, on the site plan, are you showing that outdoor storage as a fenced-in area, so that?
Well, it's behind the fence.
The whole site is fenced in.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that sometimes outdoor storage areas can expand and expand and expand and
Do you
expand,
wanna
and
show
you're
the,
saying.
do you have a picture of?
We had, originally, we
So-
had a small,
Yeah.
picture, we had a large one.
So what was
Yeah, so-
discussed when we were discussing this in code revision with industrial C properties and whether or not we would allow
is the
outdoor
fence around.
storage? It was discussed that we would have them fence in the area for the outdoor storage so that we would have it depicted on the site so that we know that it wouldn't expand past that. So if you're proposing,
I guess the area in here where you would,
Yes.
where you would contain the outdoor storage.
Those areas, the dark areas, are where they would have the outdoor storage.
And how will they be delineated?
On the site plan.
On the
Well,
site-
we just could show them as they are here, so that you would know where they were.
Is this where the outdoor storage is right now?
Approximately, yeah, yeah.
so what my concern is that this area would fill up and become outdoor storage, that this outdoor storage would expand onto this area over here, and things of that nature, which is,
That's not their
you know,
intention.
this is benign, I
Okay.
understand.
Yeah.
So the question then comes be, how can we delineate these areas, even because this is all pavement underneath, can they be striped as outdoor storage, so if it goes beyond
That's a good idea.
that area, we will know that it's beyond
I
that?
don't think that's a problem, I
Okay.
think that would be
Okay.
acceptable, because that's what they're saying.
Okay,
And
Okay.
either they're saying it and they mean it.
right, so that this way, if somebody's coming by and it's,
Inspecting, they
Yeah.
can
And
see.
and it exceeds that area, then they would have to.
That's it.
yeah.
I'm just concerned,
Fine.
and I'm not
Keep it
concerned
within the
about,
line.
I'm not concerned about the outdoor storage as much as I am about emergency vehicles being able to get onto the site and put out a fire if they needed to, or an ambulance to get in there, if those openings, were to be closed up with outdoor storage. That's my concern, is emergency
I did speak with
services.
the fire marshal and Brad Hammond this morning about that very issue. In fact, he's, by pure coincidence, is scheduled to have an on-site inspection, he's probably out there right now, for their annual inspection. And it is a concern in terms of fire protection, and we're gonna incorporate those conditions into conditions of approval for the resolution, having to do, and they gave me, the fire marshals gave me the section numbers, I'm not gonna recite them here, but one of the concerns is the storage beneath the overhangs of the buildings, proximity of the material to the building. And there's another requirement, Charles, Mr. Cuddy, that you have not been aware of, we just found out about this morning, is the code requires one on-site fire hydrant. And I know your plan shows one off the site,
And your point is that's not enough.
well, they're gonna have to, using the
don't have
conditional
one
code,
currently.
they're gonna have to add
We don't
them.
have any right now.
Right, so they're gonna have to add that, that's,
We have
it's
one that's there, but it's
off the site, and the code
Okay.
requires there
Right.
be.
it wouldn't,
One
Cause
on the
nowadays,
site.
if it was a new building, it'd be a Storzol that you'd put on the side of the building, and that would be able to hook up the hose and put out the fire,
So we'll just incorporate this as in conditions of approval, and then we'll also add the condition regarding striping the outdoor area, so I know that Craig, will get a copy of the approved plan, but, you know, he can, that way he can match up the plan to the striping on the property and
I think
see.
that's a great idea, Laura, is to have it striped rather than fenced in.
Good job.
Well, it's all fenced in, that's required.
Well, the
Hold on,
property
yeah.
is, but it's not the outdoor storage.
Okay, yeah,
Property.
that's why trucks can get back and forth. Okay, any other questions from the board?
No, I thought a lumberyard as of right had outdoor storage, I didn't realize it was all by special permit.
I don't think it is, I think this was a covenant placed on this
There was a
when it,
covenant.
because it was a
On this particular land?
non-conforming use, and when they did it, they had put that covenant in
yes,
place.
That was,
Okay, very good,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
well, thank you for, thank them for fixing up that spot, it's very nice.
Yeah, it's nice to see it not being
It is,
abandoned for so
it's
long.
nice to see it not where it was.
No, they'll continue doing a good job,
very good,
okay?
thank you, Mr.
Thank
Petty.
you.
Hi, Mr.
All
Kenny.
right, so can I have a first and second to go into executive session for contractual tended modification of a contract with Verizon and personnel matters surrounding the replacement of an employee?
I move we go into an executive session.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye, or how about we do
No answer.
opposed?
Aye.
All right, so carried.